Hey guys, what is up? Swim here, and this is the deck guide for my Ezreal deck. So this is a very, very fun deck that I've been playing. If you've been watching my streams, you've seen this deck. This is my favorite or second favorite deck in the entire game, and I'm really, really happy where this ended up after like building it and like refining it over several days and playing it quite a bit in Masters. So just to like a brief recap though, a lot of people might be asking like why I haven't posted a lot of deck guides in the last like 2 weeks since the game came out, because I'm like the deck guy. Like that's what I do. That's what I always do. Honestly, for me, the hard thing is basically like, especially right now since the game is new and the meta is constantly evolving, it's really hard for a deck to get to the point where I feel like I can say, yes, this is the version you should play. This is how you're gonna win. Like this is the final version, right? And I don't like the idea of posting a video for a deck that I think is less than perfect, honestly. And it's not as if it gets better over time, but like, you know, it's gonna need to adjust to next week's meta and next week's meta, right? And like it feels like we're in too much of a state of flux for that, and I want to make sure that when I make a deck guide, it's going to be, you know, the version, right? The final version, right? I don't want to just put it out early just to get more views or anything like that. But this is probably the deck out of all of mine that is not necessarily the strongest. I mean, Elusive Burn is going to have a higher win rate, I'll just tell you that right now, but is necessarily the most complete in terms of like not needing future changes. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and drop this deck guide on you. We're going to talk about what this deck is, how it's built, how it wins. We're going to go over some gameplay, and it's going to be a lot of fun. This basically, the win condition of this deck is it plays like Freeze Mage, or almost, I mean, you could say Miracle Rogue if you want, but it's basically like a Super Cycle combo OTK deck if you play other card games. OTK is one turn kill, basically. We're just going to stall and draw until we just blow them out with Ezreal. So that means we're going to be rummaging, right? Discarding, drawing. We're going to be progress staying. We have 3 progress days. We're going to be just drawing as much draw power as possible. Even running 1 entry in this current version, I might end up changing that, but we'll see. And basically, at the end, we're going to blast the opponent out with Ezreal, right? So the idea here, obviously, whenever you cast a spell, deal 2 to the Nexus. So as soon as you play him, even if they go to kill him right away, you just play a bunch of mushrooms from your hand, you play like 4 mushrooms and they're dead. The game's over, right? And there's kind of like low interaction in that finisher. There's pretty much nothing they can do about like the burst speed finisher of Ezreal, because even when they go to kill him, you're protected, right? So you don't play this card early. But effectively, every card in this deck is going to be helping this condition very significantly. Now, I know what you guys are all asking. Why are the Poros in the deck? Well, I'm glad you asked. Lonely Poro and the one of Poro Herder have actually proven to be really fantastic in this deck. Basically, the logic is pretty simple. Lonely Poro generates for 1 mana a discard card in your hand, right? You can discard the 1-cost Poro that you get from it. So it's like a 1 mana. So think of it sort of like a clump of Womps almost, right? That we're just basically going to be discarding the card it generates, but it's a 1/1, so it does pretty well against aggro. And there's a lot of its cards that will actually play from hand. Like, for example, if we get like a Affectionate Poro, the Challenger one, that's something we'll fairly commonly actually just play from hand as like a 1/1/1 challenger. Like, that's not bad. Depends on the situation we're in, but it just generates a lot more discard targets. Now, the real reason though is for the bomb that is Poro Herder. And it's a 1-of, but when you do draw it, it's a 4th Chump Wump on steroids, okay? And basically, this is this entire deck's condition. You're playing the Chump Wump. You're discarding the mushrooms early. You're using mushrooms as fodder for Rummage and Get Excited. They're just discard targets. But in the late game, mushrooms can also be used to trigger Ezreal, right? Poro Herder is the same thing. When you have a Lonely Poro, you are able to, you know, play the Poro Herder. He will draw the other 2 Lonely Poros out of your deck, which they're discard targets, same as Chump Wumps, mushrooms, right? But you can also play them if you want, and get another discard target in your hand if you just want to play like a 1 mana 1/1 that cycles itself, right? You see the pattern here? It's actually very powerful, I promise. You'll see. I know there's a lot of people that are like, you know, keck Wing or whatever, like, Poros, he can't be serious. But no, I'm very serious. I've played this version for several days now, and it's actually, I can guarantee you this is a good version of the list. So, yeah, Lonely Poros, it adds a lot of like cycle, really helps your aggro win rate, because against aggro, just dropping like 2 1 mana 1/1s is actually sweet, right? There's a lot you can do with that. So now, for Ezreal to level, the condition we're going to have to fulfill is, of course, getting a lot of enemy targets, right? You've targeted enemy units 8+ times. Now, we're not going to need to do anything crazy for this. We're just going to need to play a bunch of things that target things. That's Static Shock, stalls, targets, cycles. Wow, that's everything this deck could possibly want. Harsh Winds, of course, one of the biggest reasons we're in failure right now. Frostbite 2 enemies, targets 2 things, stalls out. Then of course we've got Get Excited. You know, we've got a lot of discard. We've got a ton of discard fodder in this deck. If you draw like any amount of like Chump Bumps or Lonely Poros or Poro Herder, discard's value is just free. Everose Marksman is actually proven to be very fantastic in this meta right now. As a 3/1, basically it's a fearsome blocker, and hey, it targets as well for Ezreal, so deal 1 to an enemy unit. You're going to be able to use that to clean up certain things. Mystic Shot, deal 2 to anything, of course, kind of a staple in P&Z. I don't need to talk about Mystic Shot. Icefield Archer, this is low-key one of the best cards in the game, straight up. Do not underestimate this card. Auto-include in every failure deck ever. This card is super, super crazy. I can't go on enough about how good this card is. Absolute bonkers. Entry, currently a 1 of... you know, it's basically allowing us to potentially draw into an Ezreal. It's triggering a spell. Part of the reason it ends up fitting in this list is just because there's a lot of turns where we're floating mana, or just kind of like burning mana, like not using our full mana reserves. And it's deck thinning, helps us get into like the draw cards we need. In the end game situation, you know, when you drop the Ezreal for a finisher, if you have Entry in your hand, you can use this for 2 mana to proc Ezreal, and then it'll draw another Ezreal from your deck, which will turn into Ezreal's Mystic Shot, which will be another thing for you to basically kill the opponent with, right? Everose and Sentry, obviously this is an extremely valuable draw tool, and if you're looking at this deck, and if you play this game, which I hope you do, you're going to be asking me, why the hell is this card not a 3 of, Swim? And I'm going to say, Fearsome is degenerate, and against Fearsome, this card literally, very literally does actually nothing. So, now, I will say, in different versions of this deck, there will probably be more sentries. I can tell you right now, if you're watching this video and it's over a week old, and Fearsome's been nerfed and we're all enjoying the meta, then we'll be at a point where if you click on the link in the comments, you'll probably see a version with 3 Everos and sentries. This card's really good. This deck wants to run 3 of this card. It's really hard. Honestly, I can tell you right now, if you're not against a lot of Fearsomes on ladder, just run 3 sentries. But it's a card that at current time has been kind of clunking out against like that one matchup, which is like 70% of everything I see. So, you know, I mean, that's why this has gotten cut down to a 1 of. But yeah, just do the 3 sentry version when in doubt. Rummage, obviously, we're discarding, you know, the Poros from Lonely Poro and the mushrooms from other things. Brittle Steel, we've got Frostbite for, you know, targeting, just triggering Ezreal. And Thermo Beam. Thermo Beam has proven to be a pretty invaluable, like, flexible tool in general. You can just do a lot of things with this card. It's definitely something you have to plan around, but I'm quite liking its inclusion as a 2 of in this deck. Anyway, that's the breakdown of the list, right? I mean, I would say at this point, if you just want to skip to the gameplay, go ahead and do it. I'm going to talk about the deck build just a little bit more because there's actually a few things to talk about in terms of what cards we aren't running, which I think is basically just as important as what cards we are, because there's going to be a lot of cards in these colors that might seem to make sense in this kind of idea, and I want to explain very clearly why they aren't in this list, because, you know, of course, if you like build the list and then add certain cards, it's not necessarily going to make it better. Heimerdinger is probably the number 1 here. You guys are probably all like, well, you're casting a lot of spells, right? So why not play Heimerdinger? Well, Heimerdinger is a good card, but this is not a list that fights for the board. This is just true quintessential just stall combo degeneracy. The entire point of this deck is basically you're stalling out the game, right? You want to stall out the game for long enough so that you can just kill them, bypassing their board completely. This is not a deck that wants to fight for the board in any way. and this is not a deck that like really gains value out of cards that aren't either cycling or triggering Ezreal, right? Which Heimerdinger does neither of, right? The best thing Heimerdinger does is he kind of turns into progress days sometimes, but against a lot of aggressive strategies, he has a hard time helping you stabilize. And he also has a deck building cost as well, because usually in Heimerdinger decks, you want to run cards, you know, like Flash of Brilliance, which, to be perfectly honest, I wouldn't say this works great with Ezreal. I know there's some people that, you know, might feel otherwise, but I don't think Ezreal and Heimerdinger are actually really playing too much for the same condition in general. They're kind of different cards. Heimerdinger wants you to fight for the board. He wants you to run cards like Flash of Brilliance, and even cards like Plaza Guardian, which, you know, hey, I'll talk about. That's also a card that's not in this deck, you know. It could be, but again, this isn't a fight for the board deck. When I'm on the turns where I'm thinking about playing Plaza Guardian, all I want to be doing is cycling, playing like harsh winds, maybe like stalling, which, you know, obviously a blocking body can't stall, but when you draw this early, it just feels way too bad. And when you don't care about your bodies being able to attack, which of course we don't because we have Ezreal, this is our entire win condition, any card in the deck that doesn't cycle for other cards, draw cards, or like target enemy units to kill them and like help our Ezreal level faster, or slow the game down, which usually is kind of the same thing as targeting. That's going to be like harsh winds, right? Like you could say Plaza slows the game down, but not nearly to the same degree as something like harsh winds, right? So it has to be in a really, really major way. And any card that doesn't do one of those three things just can't fit in this list. There's just no room. So that's why Plaza Guardian is gone. And also, that's why Progress Day is a 3 of. I forgot to explain that before. Progress Day is a really, really important 3 of. Even though it's like, it seems like a crazy amount of draw, that's what this deck does. It just wants to draw through all of its card and then combo the opponent at the end. True Shot Barrage isn't in this list. Honestly, I don't think this card is amazing, but in a deny meta, I just kind of refuse to run it. In a different meta, I could definitely see myself trying to slot this card in, but I personally, just that 7 mana for slow speed, and with so many better alternatives, that's kind of the big thing. It's like, what would I cut for it? I don't think there's really anything that would make me want to go into True Shot Barrage here. So I think True Shot just ends up not being great here. Hextech Transmogulator is actually on the list. Not a lot of people are looking at this card, but there's definitely some people who are like, Swim, why don't you run this? You can target 2 enemies with this, so it's kind of 2 Ezreal triggers, which is kind of cute. The problem is it's just 6 mana, you know, the whole deny argument again, and it's really, really specific of a card. It's kind of like a meme card. I don't know. It's the kind of card I might look at if it cost 5 mana, and it definitely does kind of almost make the cut, but I don't think it's great. I don't think it's good enough in general. And a really big one is going to be Avalanche, right? A lot of you guys are going to be like, whoa, no Avalanche? What the heck? How is that happening? And the reason for that is just because we tend to not give up the board entirely. Iceville Archer and Marksman are very important blockers as well, and I actually just kind of hate Avalanche as a card. It's really good in low levels when people aren't like careful to play around it, and to be honest, maybe I'll run one version eventually just to kind of like force people to play around it. Like, it's definitely not bad to run like one Avalanche in this deck. But for the most part, you know, deny meta. Like, when you think about it, Avalanche is mostly there for, like, the fearsome matchup. But in the fearsome matchup, you know, you have these 3-1 blockers. And on top of that, you've also got, you know, the most common version of the deck currently at time of posting being run is the one with deny, which, of course, you know, it's like, oh, if I Avalanche on... It's just like... I think this card is just very vulnerable to a lot of things, and any situation where I could play Avalanche, which is basically, you know, when they are open developing, then Iceville Archer would just be better, right? At the end of the day, cards like Avalanche and Ruination seem really, really tempting in Runeterra, but as you get to higher and higher levels, people will open attack more. And when people open attacking is starting your action by attacking on your turn, right? And when people open attack more, that means that cards like Avalanche get a lot worse. Like, you can use them on your turn, but if your opponent is like being a little careful about it, you know, they're not gonna like develop a crazy amount when your board is super narrow, which means they're never going to let you get a really good Avalanche, right? You know, and even against like Fearsome, it's like you'll kill like 2 Mistwraiths and then what? You're still going to just die, right? You've paid 4 mana to kill 2 Mistwraiths, and that's okay. You know, it's kind of like I mean, it's not even necessarily better than like Static Shock, which, you know, can often be killing things, because there's often like things at 1 health, and this draws a card, and it targets 2 things for Ezreal. Basically, I think Avalanche just, like, it looks so much better than it ends up being. This is a card that has really fallen down my ratings recently, but it will perform at low levels. Flash Freeze is going to be, I think, probably the last card on this list in terms of things that look like they could be in this deck but don't end up being. Flash Freeze was in an earlier version of this list, and I ended up cutting it just because, honestly, this isn't really a power card. It's good with Ashe if you're running Ashe. Because of course, you know, you need the Frostbites. It targets an enemy for Ezreal, but it's not really what you want. I don't know. Maybe in certain metas I could fit in like 1 or 2 Flash Freezes. It's not impossible. But again, I just have plenty of things that target things. And 3 mana just to stop 1 attack is not necessarily worth it. It ends up being like a worse Harsh Winds. And don't get me wrong, Harsh Winds is a super valuable card. But I figure like I just want more things that are going to kill things. Icefield Archer is just much better than Flash Freeze. I know that, you know, the burst speed does make a difference, but it's not nearly enough. So Flash Freeze just ends up being edged out of that slot. And the last thing I just remembered actually is going to be Ashe. I almost forgot about her. So Ashe probably looks like she belongs in this list. It's the same problem as Heimerdinger. Ashe, so I know this list runs a lot of freezes, and I know Ashe says freeze on her, but like in reality, it doesn't really end up making any sense, right? Like Ashe is a unit that wants you to fight for the board and provides an ult win con, right? Basically, like she provides a finisher. Well, we already have a finisher. We have Ezreal. She's very offensive. She only procs on attack. We want to be defensive. The only offense we have is basically our finisher with Ezreal. We're just stalling and cycling the entire game and then killing them straight up with Ezreal, right? We don't want something that's offensive, something that's going to reward us for playing for the board, something that plays into like removal ranges. Ashe is everything we don't want from this list, okay? I promise. So that is the list in summary. That is basically what we're going to be looking at, and I'll be taking this to ranked ladder. We're going to play some Masters games, 1 or 2, we'll see, and then we'll basically show you how it works. Okay, we get into our game here. We're at 84. Don't judge me. I've been playing Teemo all day yesterday. Okay. But now we're playing an actual deck. We're playing Ezreal. So we've got Freljord Noxus, and of course we're against Hyped here. So this is going to be kind of like the Ashe sort of net deck that's been going around. I quite dig this version. Like no other champions than Ashe, I think, is going to be like the better way to play it, I would say. We've got Icefield Archer that's going to be slowing down the game. Pretty invaluable in general. Mystic Shot and Thermo Beam. I'm not super familiar with his deck. I think Thermo Beam will always be able to hit value. Maybe pick off like a Glory Seeker for 1. I like the idea of probably taking a Poro Herder kick because we're not on Poro yet. And I think I want to keep the rest of these. I think so. This is like a very kind of like standard keep. It really just depends what you're up against for keeping like Thermo Beam maybe. There's probably some matchups where I would kick this out of the opener. But in the early game, you're mostly looking for ways of just kind of making sure you don't get like attacked and killed too early, right? While of course later on you're looking for your cycle and stall tools. So we're just going to go ahead and take this trade. 2 mana for 2 mana. Seems good. Brittle Steel would be hot here. Or sorry, not Brittle Steel. Elixir of Iron. I don't know why I said Brittle Steel. But yeah, that pause might have very much indicated an Elixir of Iron. So we've got a 6-card hand and nothing to play. We're just looking to get reactivity. If he develops a unit, I wouldn't mind playing something like this. So we can go ahead and take a kill on that if we're using like Marksman and Thermo Beam. I actually don't really mind that. I don't really mind banking the mana either. We don't have great ways of finishing off a 1 health thing. And we have good ways of punishing open development as well as early aggression. Wow, this is actually such a strange spot. I think I will just take a 2-for-1 on myself here. Which is fine. I mean, I say 2-for-1, but I'm, you know, developing a unit with the effect as well. So I'll just take like the 1 damage Thermo Beam here. I mostly just want to like on the board at this point. We're getting good progress on the level up on Ezreal. He's already at 3, which is pretty fantastic. And even getting a bit of chip damage in is pretty sweet. I will say, even though this deck does kill from a super high amount of health, you want a bit of chip damage. It has a hard time killing from like 20, so it's nice to kind of basically get it in a little early. So we've got Ashe here, which means, of course, you know, we're looking at something like Brittle Steel, perhaps. When she attacks, she'll Frostbite this. If we go for the Chump Wump, we're effectively denying that attack anyway, and we're, you know, developing rummage value. If we go for the Ezreal Archer on the Ashe, we're not really accomplishing too much. We're going down to 2 bank mana plus 5, not enough to Progress Day, so not really high enough value. I will just take the Chump Wump here. Really want to get these out early. Progress Day is a very strange card. You really kind of want to use it as early as possible because, of course, you're getting the cost reduction like the earlier you play it. But it's also quite important to not overcommit for it because you can run out of tempo and have an awkward spot. So we'll take an open attack here. I'm fine with these exchanges. He might do like a block freeze kind of thing, or he might just take himself down to 10. I'm fine either way. I mean, if he has some kind of like freeze, he can use it on offense or defense. So, and it's a really important lesson. Like playing around tricks, you just can't always play around them, right? It's not really worth doing. It's like if he has something, he'll find a way to use it eventually, right? Like when he's attacking, when I'm going to blocking, it'll eventually be the same thing. And we also like the ability to get in some like random chip damage. So I don't really mind taking a Brittle Steel here though, effectively kind of trading with his card. See, like that's fine. Like he had a Harsh Winds, so it kind of forced our hand, but his card costed a lot. We forced him into a situation where he had to use a pretty expensive card. That's great. See, he doesn't get to like develop units this turn, and we'll play our Lonely Poro. So now we can go ahead and go to next turn, full on curve. We're on the full 3 mana bank, which is great because now we can play Progress Day, even Progress Day plus Rummage or something like that if we want. If he develops into us, I'm in a premium spot for Ezreal Archer. So he Frostbites the Chump Wump, which means when the Ashe attacks, it'll Frostbite this, and then I won't really have, you know, an amazing blocker for Ashe. I can chump it out. I think that's... Ooh. Man. It's a very strange spot. I would very much like to Progress Day this turn. I think, like, Progress Day is definitely a card that's hard to fit into certain things. And there's a lot we can draw for Progress Day that would allow us to, like, curve out still. Like, weird stuff like Mystic Shot. We also have, like, decent blockers, and even we can even curve the Affectionate Poro if we need to. Let's take the Progress Day. There's the Archer. Look at that. Beautiful. 3rd Archer. Absolutely beautiful. That's what you like to see. And of course, we had to draw from Progress Day because we didn't have enough mana for Progress Day plus normal Ezreal Archer. So this does a really, really great job of just kind of slowing down his roll here. This Ashe's attack is no longer amazing. He'll get, you know, a poke in with the Rimefang Wolf, but it's not going to be doing too much. Hand size limit is 10, and we're at 8 now, so we have to think, you know, okay. We're getting close to the hand size limit. We're going to have to think about, like, what we want to do about that. Okay, so we've got Rummage for Mushrooms. We're entering like the late game already. Ezreal's 5 out of 8. We'll probably be leveling him up with Harsh Winds, and our hand size is currently at 9. We've got 2 more Archers in hand, and you really want to be using these defensively, not so much offensively. Now I don't mind rummaging for more options here, but you're not really sure yet like what you want to be taking a rummage on, right? So I think it's probably pretty safe to rummage Mushrooms here, because the Affectionate Poro is actually something we might end up using. Like I mentioned, this is like a Poro that can be quite good. I think I'll take the non-committal Chump Wump here. This will take us to 10 card hand, which means if we end one of our rounds with 10 cards in our hand, it means we don't get to draw. Specifically, it means the card that we tried drawing just gets deleted from the game. And sometimes if that's an Ezreal you're looking for, that can be pretty bad in some situations. But either way, we want to draw. So we're going to basically be looking for a way to spend 1 card and at least 1 mana. It's really nice when you can to like bank additional mana here. Like that's a pretty big deal for this deck, I will say. So I like the idea of taking a pretty aggressive Static Shock. The only problem is we're at the 10 card hand, and I really want to respect that, right? Set Wolf into Static Shock range with Lonely Poro is an option. We could also go for rummages. I think it's like, I actually don't see a need to rummage right now. So I'll just play the Lonely Poro out, make our other Poro a little happier. And this 1-1 challenger will definitely give us options. I think hitting the Rhymefang Wolf is going to be pretty nice here because he gets into range of Static Shock. Now, of course, this will very broadly telegraph the Static Shock, but I mean, I don't think there's a lot his deck can really do about it, so I'm pretty happy with this. Basically just means when he goes for the attack next turn and threatens our 4-4 with the Wolf, then we can Static Shock to make sure that it just gets killed, which is nice. So now we're back up to the 10 card hand, and we're at the total 11 mana. Here's the Trifarian Assessor. Pretty spooky card in general, like that's how that deck generates a lot of draw power. But of course, he's developing into his attack, which means we have, you know, the Iceveil Archer Punish in general. Again, this card, I wasn't kidding when I was saying this card is just like one of the craziest cards in the game. Here's a question, is it better to freeze Ashe or Hearthguard? I think Ashe in this case. So if he wants to attack and like get level progress on his Ashe, then, you know, he has to concede that his Ashe just might be dying. So he's pretty behind on his level progress. At 3 out of 5, not really doing so well. We're at 6 out of 8 on Ezreal, and of course our Ezreal progress does have the ability to close the game out, depending on, you know, how many mushrooms we have in our hand, what our finisher is going to end up looking like. We're pretty ready to close out this game. But yeah, this looks pretty sweet here. We just, at this point, we're kind of looking for one Ezreal. We're not really in a hurry. As long as we can stall out more, like, it just buys us enough time to not necessarily need it. I'm pretty happy just playing Iceveil Archer here. We'll just play another Archer. I can do this all day. This is great. So, our board is full now, which means we can't play more units. That could be a bit of a downside, but I think it's totally fine. The problem he has is that when we do an attack, you know, he will have to block something, and that will free up board space for us. Or we can just trump out with this Lonely Poro. But yeah, in some situations, you do have to be very cognizant of your board space. You have to be like, man, I really don't want to fill this up, but this is definitely not one of those situations. So we're at 7 out of 8 on Ezreal. We're looking for, you know, either Static Shock or Harsh Winds, and then of course finally hitting him. Now the one thing is, you might notice we haven't used Rummage yet. In some situations you can use it earlier, but because we have a game where our Ezreal progress is quite good, yeah, we'll take the Static Shock here, of course. I don't think I can kill the Hearthguard, actually. I can force him to play a spell, maybe. I don't know, is the Chump Wump actually worth protecting? Let's just go ahead and try to do this. I think he'll likely be able to protect his Hearthguard with like a freeze, is kind of my point, so it's kind of hard to kill. So I'll just kill this one and back. Okay. So there's the Elixir of Iron. That's not too surprising, and that's fine. Like, we forced it out by, you know, playing the way we did. So he's down an entire card. Feels fine. Now we've got the 8-card hand. Oh yeah, I was explaining Rummage. Sorry, train of thought. Yeah, we've got basically a hand where we're looking for Ezreal, but because there's not a lot of pressure on us, I'm not really looking for new options. If I take the Rummage early, it gives us some more options, but if I'm able to save it until the Ezreal turn, what it actually represents, like, having more targets for Ezreal to go off, because it's a spell, right? So Ezreal's leveled at this point, and we have a 9-card hand, which means if we play Chump Wump, that means we're good to go with a 10-card hand, and of course that means we're going to have to, you know, play an additional card here. So he's drawing a lot. I'm not really worried about that, but that's how this deck works. The Trifarian Assessor is huge payoff here for sure. And we'll play Avaro's and Sentry as well. So now our hand size is 9, but if the Sentry were to die, our hand size would go to 10. And then at that point, we wouldn't be drawing our top deck, which is risky. We want to make sure we're drawing every turn, right? And we do want to make sure we're freeing up board space here as well. So I think what I don't mind doing is taking a bit of like a slightly aggressive attack here. He's looking for like a full board freeze, effectively. We are going to have to do some kind of attack in the spot. My 3-1s are kind of always hitting value on this attack. Like, look at all these blockers. You know, the 3-1 will kind of like force something out. And I actually don't mind attacking with Sentry either, because if he blocks it, that means I get my card draw online a little sooner. I think in this case I'm not going to be going for that, and leaving these 4/4s as blockers is also quite nice. He's likely going to be on like a second Harsh Winds. I think I'll... It's actually so weird. I think I'm in a situation where I have to be happy just chilling. Like, we don't need any more board controller chip damage. He's burning the same amount of mana we are. Like, it's, you know, burning 3 mana, so it's not really better for him. And we're just chilling until Ezreal just shows up. We've got a lot of time. If he's got, like, Harsh Winds, you know, he can make our units, like, unblockable, or unable to block with Ashe anyway. So he's taking an aggressive Harsh Winds just to level the Ashe. Wow, it's a very, very, very aggressive play. I'm into it. So this definitely screams of, like, you know, open attack tendencies. There's a lot this could be. I think using Get Excited on maybe like the Legion Drummer or something like that to maybe help slow his roll a little bit. You know, make sure he can't do anything weird. Of course, we've got our own Harsh Wind, so that's fine. We can afford to lose a Mushroom. We've got 5 Mushrooms left plus Rummage. And yeah, we're mostly just looking to get value out of like the Avaros and Sentry. So he'll take an aggressive attack here. By the way, using Harsh Winds like that probably says you have third Harsh Winds. Or maybe something weird like Icy Eddy. I could see that. Okay, Crystal Arrow, sure. That's fine. Right. So it's gonna be a big freeze on the board. That's kind of the one problem with Sentry. It's like it's kind of hard to get him to die sometimes. I'm in very much a position where I want the Sentry to die, but sometimes he just won't do it. So he's gonna do a decent attack here. We've got Harsh Winds to basically slow his roll, and Progress Day to curve out. We've got a total of a 8-card hand, which means there's no downside to opening with Progress Day here. 0 mana Rummage is gonna be sweet. And we are under 5, so let's go ahead and Harsh Winds, very simply the 2 6-attack units. And this should be probably like the last turn we're needing to stay alive here. So let's do a hand size count. We're at 9 cards in our hands, and we don't have any unit space at this point. That's very, very important. Like, no unit space at this point does make this spot pretty awkward. We could look for like a full attack, I'm thinking. So we have 10 mana, got 5. Would he have to block a full attack? He would have to block a full attack. And if he declares blockers, I can reduce my hand size. My hand size is currently 10, which means if Sentry dies now, we're not drawing a card. Which is very, very interesting.
This will be quick.
So he's got more freezes here if he's blocking like that.
Let's see what you've got.
So now, if Sentry is to die, we are going to need to, you know, get out of our pieces. Let's do Harsh Winds. Okay. So that's probably the last Harsh Winds, right? Should be. Brittle Steel, okay. Sure. Getting in some chip damage, which is quite nice. He's using all of his freezes, wow. Yeah, and of course he's leaving Sentry up. He kind of needs to leave Sentry up. We can go ahead and Rummage here. And this is why Sentry is like, I want to run this card as a 3-of, but it might just be a little too awkward, you know? Like, it does feel quite not great. So we've got the 9-card hand, which means we do have the ability to go in pretty deep off of this Ezreal. I'm feeling pretty good about this spot. He will be sitting on Culling Strike here, and we're gonna see how the Ezreal finisher is gonna be paying off against Culling Strike. So now Hyped is smart enough to not use Culling Strike until we're threatening lethal with something else, which means we're not gonna be able to use Get Excited. So I think I want to rummage it away already. Because we're basically just looking for more casts, right? So we can go ahead and rummage this away. Of course, you'll notice we're giving him no chance at interaction, right? So if I mushroom, it's burst. The action's not passing back to him, right? Like, it's just, I'm playing my cards, I'm doing my thing. Hyped, come on, man! Okay. Well, I was trying to show the finisher there. But of course, you know, the game was over. We had the Ezreal burst on the board, and we were just going to play out our cards and just finish the game. So that's how the deck plays, basically. Pretty straightforward. I think that, honestly, in the last couple of turns, fully filling up my board and, like, there was probably some misplay there. I might have been supposed to attack on that, like, second to last turn. I'm not sure. But yeah, that's typically how the game is going to play. It was, I guess, a little awkward there for a bit because we didn't have Ezreal yet. But when you look at basically how the deck plays out, we're on very high odds. Like, we had 2 rummages in hand. We have 4 Ezreals in deck if you consider the 1 in treat, which, you know, we might swap out. But basically, we're very confident in our position there. All we just need to do is stall out like 1 additional turn and then blow him up as a finisher. Yeah, that's going to be how the deck plays out almost every game. Okay. I wanted to do a second game here for you guys for this video, but I'm actually, my stream was supposed to start 20 minutes ago. I'm late, so I've got to wrap this up here. So I will go ahead and leave you with this. This is a very great deck. It's very challenging. It's very rewarding. I promise you'll enjoy it if you like thinking a lot about the plays. It's not an idle deck. It's not a good deck to play like while watching a movie in the sidebar, you know, like it does require your attention, but it's extremely rewarding. And I think you'll enjoy it as much as I do if you're interested in giving it a try. Anyway, that's going to be it for me, and I'll see you guys next time.